The aquarium. The air in the penthouse above Central Park was as transparent and sterile as an operating room. It had no scent, it simply existed. 14-year-old Anna Winterborn stood by the enormous window, her forehead barely touching the cool glass. Below, beyond an invisible yet insurmountable barrier, life teemed like an anthill. Cars, people, dogs, all seemed small, indistinct, stripped of individuality. Like moving dots in a kaleidoscope she had once shattered, and for which she had never been scolded, the broken pieces had simply vanished, as if by magic. "Anna, don't stand by the glass. There's a draft," came the soft but firm voice of her mother, Eleanor Winterborn. She emerged from the depths of the living room, silent as a shadow, in her ivory silk robe, her fingers adorned with a single, flawless emerald, rested on her daughter's shoulder. "Come, breakfast is served." The dining table was a work of art, a snow-white tablecloth, porcelain with delicate gold accents, silverware whose cold gleam seemed eternal. Anna took her seat. Before her lay a plate of perfectly sliced fruit, each piece identical, like soldiers on parade. Her father, Henry Winterborn, didn't look up from his tablet displaying stock market updates as he unfolded his newspaper. The rustling of pages was the only sound breaking the silence. The maid, Clara, entered, a girl of about 20, in a strict black and white uniform, her hair parted with immaculate precision. She carried a vase of orchids, exotic, pale lilac blooms that likely cost more than her monthly wages. Clara carefully replaced the old vase, her movements precise, practiced. Anna noticed her hands. The skin over her knuckles was red, rough, cracked in places, a stark contrast to Anna's own flawless nails, polished to a transparent sheen. "Papa!" Anna's voice rang out, shattering the ritual silence. "Why are Clara's hands so red? It's unsightly." Henry Winterborn slowly lowered his newspaper. His gaze, cold and assessing, flicked over the maid's hands, then to his daughter's, pale, smooth, resting on the edge of the table. "Everyone has their duties, Sunshine," he said evenly, without judgment or sympathy. "Her hands are tools for work. Yours are made for beauty. Playing piano, holding a glass at receptions, wearing beautiful rings. Don't clutter your mind with trivialities." Clara, eyes downcast, slipped out almost soundlessly. Anna looked at her fingers. Tools for beauty. Memories surfaced of other hands, warm, slightly rough, smelling of chalk and lavender. The hands of Miss Edwina, her governess. She used to take Anna's palms in hers, squeezing them with tender strength. Hands, Anushka, aren't just for taking, they're for doing and feeling. Understand? Feeling wood, fabric, bread, life. But Miss Edwina had been dismissed 2 years ago for excessive sentimentality and unnecessary talk of feelings. Circles. 17-year-old Anna sat in her boudoir, bathed in the soft glow of sconces and the reflections of enormous mirrors. She sifted through invitations to her upcoming birthday, thick, embossed cards. Her phone rang. The screen displayed a name, Rebecca Parker, friend. Rebecca's father was a business partner of the Winterborns. "So, birthday girl?" Rebecca's voice was syrup sweet. "Finalizing the guest list? Are you inviting Clarissa Monroe?" Anna frowned. Clarissa. Her father had recently gone bankrupt, loudly, disgracefully. People spoke of them with disdain. "Of course not," Anna replied, her voice smooth and cold. Her father is bankrupt, she's no longer in our circle, and her dresses," she paused for effect, "were always cheap, tacky." "No longer in our circle," Anna said it lightly, as if commenting on the weather. She didn't consider what it meant for Clarissa to lose her home, school, friends. Circles were like planetary orbits, fixed, unshakable. Her world was a crystal globe, suspended high above, perfect, fragile, and so quiet. The roar of silence. The crash didn't happen in the room. It happened somewhere far away in another dimension of her life, a plane. Not the private one they flew in, with its leather seats, a different one, the ocean. A deafening, all-consuming roar of water, and then silence, so profound it rang in her ears. 22-year-old Anna stood in the middle of her boudoir, silk pillows, the scent of expensive perfume, her reflection in the mirror, pale, wide-eyed. In her hand, she clutched her grandmother Sophia's pearl necklace, the only thing she had instinctively grabbed when strangers in stern suits entered the house. Their voices were like icy needles. Collapse, debts, immediate liquidation of assets, frozen accounts. Words that held no real meaning but carried the chill of death, the death of her world, the street. She found herself outside the house, not in front of it. The grand, familiar building, down to the last curl of the elevator grate, was no longer her shell, her aquarium. It was just a building, someone else's. The wind, unfamiliar, smelling of exhaust and the raw flesh of the city, lashed her face. In the pocket of her expensive coat, her American Express Centurion card had suddenly become a useless piece of plastic. She felt its weight, its sharp corners, a symbol turned hollow. Her legs carried her forward, away. She walked without seeing the streets, without hearing the noise. A vacuum surrounded her. Hunger, physical, sharp as a knife, finally pierced her numbness. She stopped in front of a small bakery, Le Petit Four. The aroma of fresh bread, warm, yeasty, earthy, hit her. It was foreign, insistent, almost offensive in its simplicity. She pushed the door open. A cheerful, absurd little bell jingled. Inside, it was cramped, warm, smelling of coffee and pastries. Anna approached the counter, chose a baguette. It was warm, rough under her fingers. She handed her card to the cashier, a woman in her 40s with a kind, tired face and streaks of gray in her dark hair. Her name tag read, Linda. "Good afternoon," Linda smiled, swiping the card. Once, twice. The screen flashed a red X. She frowned. "Something's not working, sweetheart. Maybe cash?" Anna stared. Cash? The word sounded archaic, like carriage or telegram. In her world, people paid with cards. Bills were settled by account numbers. Cash was something dirty for servants or taxis. Cash? Anna repeated, genuinely confused. "I have a card." Linda studied her more closely, took in the impeccable cut of her coat. Now, Anna noticed a tiny speck of dust on the sleeve. The perfect hairstyle, the frozen, lost expression. Something softened in her gaze. She smiled, gently, crow's feet forming at her eyes. "You know what, beautiful? Take the bread. Come back when you've sorted things out, and you can pay me then." She quickly slid the baguette into a paper bag and handed it to Anna. Fresh from the oven, with butter, divine. Anna took the bag. The warmth of the bread, alive, almost pulsing, burned her palms through the thin paper. She didn't say thank you. The words stuck in her throat. She just turned and left. Outside, she leaned against the cold wall. Humiliation, bitter and searing, mixed with something else, an unfamiliar, aching warmth from that bag. That smile. She remembered Clara's hands. Linda's hands were also red at the knuckles, with short, clean, unmanicured nails. Tools for work. And suddenly, she felt ashamed. Not of herself, humiliated, but of something else. Of that cold, smooth place inside. She tore open the bag, broke off a piece of baguette. The crust crackled. The inside was soft, porous, impossibly delicious. She ate, standing by the bakery wall, tears streaming down her cheeks, mingling with the crumbs. They were tears not just of grief, but of the first, vague awakening. The dragon's room. The address given to her by one of the icy lawyers, temporary lodging, Miss Winterborn, led her to an old brick building somewhere in Brooklyn. The elevator creaked, the air smelled of cumin, boiled cabbage, and something chemical. She knocked on the designated door. The door swung open, and Anna was nearly knocked back by a wave of sound, thundering music and a voice. "No way! Seriously? He just went and..." "Oh." The host turned around. Pink hair stuck out in every direction, like an explosion of eclectic energy. She wore ripped jeans and a t-shirt with an illegible logo. Behind her, on the wall, loomed a massive, masterfully painted dragon emerging from a drawn sewer grate. "Wow," the girl exclaimed, leaning against the door frame and eyeing Anna with her single yet impeccably crafted Louis Vuitton leather suitcase. "Did a real princess just fall out of her tower straight into my lair? Awesome. Don't worry, I don't bite. Only on Saturdays, and even then only with mutual consent. Come in." "My name is Anna," Anna said, trying to preserve what little dignity she had left as she squeezed the bulky suitcase through the narrow hallway. "And this is temporary." Emma, as the host introduced herself, laughed, loud, booming from the heart. "Sweetheart, we're all temporary here, dust in the wind. Welcome to reality. Rule 1. The bathroom is sacred. Schedule's on the door. Break it. Don't come crying to me. You'll wait like everyone else. Rule 2. My coffee. Don't touch. That's my sacred elixir. Not that you'd find it anyway." She waved a hand toward the kitchen, piled high with dishes and boxes. Rule 3. The most important. Don't sulk. Life is shit. Sometimes deep shit. But that's no reason to whine. You gotta swim, babe. Or drown. Choose to swim. She winked and disappeared behind her bedroom door, humming something along with the music. Anna's assigned room was tiny, a former storage closet. One window overlooking the air shaft of the courtyard, a narrow cot, an old dresser, and the smell of dust, aged wood, and someone else's life. Anna set down her suitcase. It looked like an alien artifact here. She sat on the bed. The springs groaned pitifully. Through the wall came the rhythm of music and Emma's voice, humming something. Anna closed her eyes. The noise of the city, the noise of this apartment, the noise inside her head all merged into a deafening roar. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. There were no more tears, just emptiness and that burning shame, familiar from the bakery, but now expanded to the size of the universe. She was here, in this room with pink hair and a dragon. This was reality, the first reality of her new life, the battlefield called work. Finding a job with Anna Winterborn's resume proved difficult. Harvard, internships at London and Parisian banks, fluency in 4 languages. It all either intimidated or aroused suspicion. Overqualified, she heard muttered behind her back at one interview. What does she want here? Spying? At another. Nicholas Reno's office was her last hope. A small sign. Notary Services, Reno N. The office was crammed into 2 rooms of an old building. The air was thick, the dust of ages, paper, cheap instant coffee, and something else. Desperation? Hope? Nicholas's desk looked like the aftermath of a hurricane. Nicholas himself, a man in his 30s with thick-lensed glasses, seemed buried alive in this paper chaos. He flipped through her resume, printed on heavy, expensive paper, as if afraid of dirtying it. Miss Winterborn. Anna. He adjusted his glasses, looking at her over a stack of folders. His eyes were intelligent, tired, slightly bewildered. Harvard, Rothschild internship, languages. He waved a hand around, gesturing at the modest, even shabby surroundings. Old chairs, a second-hand computer, a mountain of folders on the floor. Why are you here? You realize this is not a bank, not an investment firm. Anna straightened her back. Humiliation, as familiar as her own breath these past weeks, burned her cheeks. She wasn't looking at him, but at his desk. Chaos. But in that chaos, there was life. Real work. I need a job, Mr. Reno. Any job. I learn fast, and She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. I can bring order. Her gaze flickered back to the cluttered desk, to everything. I see the system in the chaos. Nicholas studied her for a long moment, weighing. His eyes held distrust, doubt, rich girl playing at poverty, but also curiosity and desperation. His assistant had quit the week before. All right, he sighed. On a trial basis, 1 week. Assistant, no guarantees. Minimum pay. Papers, clients, coffee, everything. Think you can handle it? I can, Anna replied. And it was the first thing she'd said with confidence in a long time. The language of unfamiliar things. The first few days were hell. The coffee machine, an ancient contraption with a leaky valve, felt like a hostile device from another planet. Anna stared at the buttons like they were hieroglyphs. The first cup of coffee she attempted to make for Nicholas turned out to be watery sludge with floating undissolved granules. He drank it in silence, only wincing slightly. The clients, they were different. Not the polished, expensive cologne types from her past. They spoke loudly, sometimes rudely, laughed too openly, smelled of sweat, cheap aftershave medicine, labor. Once, a man came in reeking of fish. Anna wrinkled her nose involuntarily. Nicholas shot her a quick, reproachful look. Boat papers, Nick, the fisherman muttered, pulling out a crumpled folder. You know, that storm damage thing. Anna stood nearby, trying to follow the conversation, feeling her irritation rise. Why did he speak so slowly? Why couldn't he just state the matter clearly? Her fingers curled into fists. Nicholas patiently asked questions, teasing out the information like an experienced fisherman. When the client left, Nicholas turned to Anna. Anna, he said calmly but firmly, they don't come here to show off their erudition or manners. They come for help. Often, for the first time in their lives, they're scared, ashamed. They don't understand the terms. Our job isn't to judge, but to understand and to help. Remember, what matters here isn't your feelings, but their needs. If the smell bothers you, open a window, but wincing is the last thing you should do. Anna flushed. The words, the last thing, stung like a slap. She nodded, unable to utter a word. This was her first lesson in humility and true service. A kind angel and a cup of coffee. One morning, as Anna was sorting through a pile of incoming letters, her flawless handwriting already leaving neat notes in the margins, The door cautiously creaked open. A small, hunched old woman entered. She wore a faded blue dress and worn-out shoes. Her hands, gnarled with arthritis, nervously fidgeted with a knitted purse. She glanced around like a frightened bird. "Hello," she whispered, barely audible. I want to leave my little apartment. To my grandson. He's a good boy, visits me, the only one who does." Anna inwardly groaned. A little apartment? Some pitiful square footage in some backwater town? She mechanically picked up a will drafting form. Nicholas approached, smiling warmly. "Good afternoon. Please, come in, have a seat. Tell us more." He began explaining the procedure and the necessary documents. Martha, as the old woman introduced herself, stared blankly, her eyes darting between Nicholas and Anna. Her hands trembled. She clearly understood nothing, lost in terms like first-line heirs and mandatory share. Nicholas spoke slowly and patiently, but Martha only clutched her purse tighter, her lips quivering. Fear had paralyzed her. Anna watched, and then, completely unexpectedly, she felt not irritation but an aching pain. Pain at the helplessness of this small human being. She remembered Grandma Sophia, her warm hands in rare moments of tenderness. She remembered Miss Edwina, to feel. "Mr. Reno," Anna interjected, her voice involuntarily softening, becoming low and soothing, the way she used to speak to her grandmother as a child. "May I?" She turned to Martha, sitting beside her to be at eye level. "Don't worry, Mrs. Martha, just Martha, dear. Don't worry, Martha," Anna repeated, and the old woman's name sounded natural on her lips. "We'll handle everything correctly. I'll help you fill out the papers. Your grandson will definitely get what you want for him. Everything will be fine." She glanced at Nicholas. "Mr. Reno, could we get Martha some water?" Nicholas nodded, surprised. Anna stood, found a dusty but intact glass in the cupboard, washed it in the tiny kitchen sink, another unfamiliar action she performed without hesitation, and filled it with water. She handed it to Martha. "Here, have a drink, no rush." She sat back down and began explaining everything again, simply, in short phrases, without legal jargon. "Here we'll write your name, here your grandson's name, here the apartment's address." Her flawless handwriting filled the form with neat, legible lines. She patiently waited as Martha struggled to recall her grandson's birth date, helped her sign, her hand gently guiding the old woman's trembling fingers. Martha calmed down. Her eyes stopped darting. When everything was finished, Martha held the will in a transparent folder as if it were the most precious thing in the world. At the doorstep, she turned back. Her eyes, clouded with age, shone with an extraordinary light. "Thank you, my dear," she whispered. You're a kind angel." She awkwardly reached out and kissed Anna on the cheek, a dry, light kiss, like the touch of a moth's wing. Anna froze. A kind angel? Her? The same woman who had once wrinkled her nose at the smell of fish? She felt warmth spread across her cheek where Martha's lips had touched. Silently, Nicholas placed a cup in front of her. Not from the coffee machine, but real, freshly brewed Turkish coffee. Fragrant steam rose from it. "Thank you, Anna," he said simply. "You did far more for her today than just a document." Anna took the cup. The heat burned her palms. She remembered the warmth of the baguette from Linda's bakery. For the first time in a long while, she felt something strange and new. Not pride in herself, though that too, but a quiet, deep satisfaction. As if somewhere far away, Miss Edwina had smiled, as if she herself had found something solid beneath her feet. Not gold, not marble, but something simpler and sturdier. Humanity. Evening in Emma's kitchen. The tiny kitchen in Emma's apartment was the epicenter of chaos and life. Dishes towered in the sink. Open chip bags and paint tubes littered the table. and a sketchbook lay nearby with a new drawing, this time a phoenix rising from a trash bin. Anna, in simple jeans and a t-shirt, her first deliberate purchase from a cheap store, was attempting to master the art of boiling pasta. The pot bubbled violently, water threatening to spill over. "Hey, Sun Princess!" Emma burst into the kitchen, waving a paintbrush smeared with bright blue. "Planning a tsunami or what? Turn down the heat!" She deftly lowered the flame, and the water immediately settled, leaving only a light steam. "See? Don't fear the fire. Learn to work with it." Anna flushed, wiping splashes from the stove with a suspiciously sticky rag. "I think I overdid it with the salt," she muttered, peering into the pot. Emma snorted, grabbing a frying pan. "You'll learn. The important thing is to start. Here, take this." She plopped a plate of scrambled eggs with peppers and onions in front of Anna. "Heard you spread some angel wings today? Martha from our building's been telling everyone about the wonderful girl at the notary's office." Anna felt heat rise to her cheeks. She took the plate. The smell of the eggs was simple yet enticing. "I just helped her with the paperwork. She was scared." "Just helped? That's the most important thing?" Emma said unexpectedly seriously, pouring cheap red wine into 2 identical yogurt cups. "Better than being a princess in a glass box, where even the air is bought. Here," she handed Anna a cup, "to learning how to boil pasta, smelling fish, and helping. Especially helping." They clinked plastic cups. The wine was tart, slightly sour, nothing like the refined wines from her father's cellar. Anna took a sip, and then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Not a polished smile for cameras, but a real one, rising from deep within. The corners of her eyes crinkled, warmth spreading through her chest. "To learning," she repeated softly, looking at Emma, at her pink hair, at the dragon on the wall. The world outside, beyond this stuffy, noisy kitchen, seemed a little less hostile, a little more real. The dust of the past and the secret in the book. Anna had little left from her past life. A suitcase of clothes. Now she realized how impractical most of it was. Her grandmother Sophia's pearl necklace, hidden at the bottom of the suitcase like a talisman, and a few books. Among them was a worn-out volume of Andersen's fairy tales in French, the one her grandmother had read to her as a child. That evening, after dinner with Emma, Anna picked it up, longing to feel even a drop of that warmth, that safety. She opened the book. Between the pages of The Little Mermaid lay a thin, yellowed envelope. On it, in familiar, elegant, yet slightly shaky handwriting, were the words, "To Anna, only when you're ready." Anna's heart raced. Carefully, she opened the envelope. Inside, not a letter, but a key. A small, old-fashioned safe deposit key and a slip of paper with an address. Banque de France, Paris, Rue La Vrillière, Box 114, and a signature, Sophia, grandmother. Anna clenched the key in her palm. The cold metal bit into her skin. What was this? A final joke? A hidden escape route she never knew about? Or a test? Only when you're ready. Ready for what? For money? For a return? For the truth? She tucked the key back into the book and hid the book under her mattress. She wasn't ready. Not now. Right now, she had to learn how to live here, in this room with the dragon, at this job with Nicholas, with this sour wine. The key could wait. Nicholas, The world behind the glasses. Work at the office gradually settled into a rhythm. Anna learned to tame the coffee machine, sort papers with near military precision, a skill that suddenly came in handy, and hold simple conversations with clients without wrinkling her nose. Nicholas watched her. His initial distrust and wariness, a runaway rich girl, slowly melted away, replaced first by surprise and then by respect. He saw how she pushed herself to overcome her disgust, how she furrowed her brow in concentration while untangling a messy inheritance dispute between 3 quarreling brothers, how patiently she explained things to an elderly couple who barely spoke English. One evening, they stayed late preparing documents for an urgent deal. Nicholas took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. His eyes, without the lenses, looked younger, more vulnerable. "Thank you, Anna," he said simply, glancing at the neatly arranged folders she had organized. "You're an unexpected person." "Unexpected?" Anna asked, surprised, as she wiped dust off the monitor. "Yeah, I thought..." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I thought you'd break, quit after a day, or look down on everyone. But you hang in there, and you learn, fast." Anna felt a flicker of embarrassment and a pleasant warmth. "I had nowhere else to go," she answered honestly. "It's not just that," Nicholas objected. He stood up and walked to the window, where the lights of the evening city were flickering to life. "I grew up here, in Brooklyn. My father was a plumber. My mother, a school janitor. This office," he gestured around the small space. "For me, it's not a failure. It's a success, my peak. I built it myself, nail by nail, client by client. And seeing someone with your background come here and work without acting like a snob, it's unexpected. Nice." Anna studied his profile by the window, the stubborn chin, the tired lines around his eyes. Suddenly, she didn't just see a nerdy notary, but a man who had stubbornly built his life from whatever he had at hand. Like Emma built her worlds with paint on the walls, like Martha built her legacy through a will for her grandson. And she felt ashamed of her first arrogant impression. She saw his effort, his dignity. "You built this yourself," she said quietly. "That's impressive." Nicholas turned back, putting his glasses on again. His gaze returned to its professional sharpness, but something warm lingered beneath the surface. "Thanks. Shall we go? I'll walk you to the subway. It's late." They strolled through the evening streets, unhurried. They talked about work, about a ridiculous client who wanted to leave his stamp collection to his parrot. Anna laughed and the sound was free and light. Nicholas shared his dream of expanding the office, hiring another assistant. Anna listened, and for the first time in a long while, the thought of the future didn't fill her with panic. It was unclear, but possible. Here, on this street, beside this stubborn man in his cheap jacket, the illusion of glamour, Alex Carter. Almost 2 years had passed. Anna was no longer the bewildered girl with the Louis Vuitton suitcase. She had grown confident in the office, becoming Nicholas's indispensable assistant. She and Emma had become friends, arguing about music, washing dishes to the blare of punk rock, Anna even posing for Emma's new sketch, Princess Anarchy, a blend of her old manners and new jeans. She had learned to count money, make edible soup, and wash socks. Her pride had faded, replaced by quiet satisfaction in her own competence. And then he appeared. Alex Carter, at the opening of a new gallery where Emma had convinced Anna to go for inspiration. He was like a flash of magnesium, young, impossibly handsome, in an impeccable tuxedo with charm that hit like a physical force. His eyes found Anna in the crowd instantly. He approached, introduced himself, spoke effortlessly, wittily, with a slight British accent. Oxford, of course. He knew who she was, and in his voice that knowledge sounded not like a reproach, but an intriguing secret. "Anna Winterborn," he said, kissing her hand. His lips brushed her skin for only a moment, yet left a lingering warmth. "I've heard the stories, the legends. Charming to see that the legend is alive and exquisite." Anna felt her cheeks flush. His attention was like a sip of champagne, intoxicating. He showered her with questions, not about her past downfall, but about her tastes, her thoughts on art, which he seemed to share, about Paris, where he often traveled. He spoke of the world she had known since childhood: yachts in Saint-Tropez, auctions in Monaco, exclusive clubs. But he spoke with irony, as if he too stood above it all. He saw her not as a victim of circumstance, but as an enigma, a phoenix. Alex's courtship was dazzling. Expensive restaurants with bay views, where waiters bowed to him like a king. Roses that filled Anna's tiny room, overpowering the scent of Emma's paint. Gifts, not flashy, but impeccably tasteful. A silk scarf, a rare book of poetry, tickets to a Met Opera premiere. He admired her unique style, her intellect, her strength of spirit. He told her, "You don't belong in this world of small offices and cheap apartments, Anna. You were made for more, for brilliance, for me." Nicholas noticed the change, saw how Anna began slipping away from work for personal matters, how a distant, dreamy gleam appeared in her eyes, how her clothes, though still bought in ordinary stores, started looking more expensive. He stayed silent. But one day, when Anna arrived in a clearly costly new dress, a gift from Alex, just because it reminded him of her, Nicholas couldn't hold back. They had just wrapped up a difficult case, and the office was quiet, dim. "Anna," his voice was low, breaking the silence. Does he see you?" Anna flinched, tearing her gaze from the computer screen. "What?" "Alex Carter," Nicholas clarified, not looking at her, shuffling papers on the desk. "Does he see the Anna who learned to brew coffee in that awful machine? Who comforted Martha? Who patiently explained to old Mr. Peterson that his cat couldn't be his heir? Or does he only see a ghost? The ghost of Anna Winterborn from the penthouse?" Anna shot up. Anger and hurt boiled inside her. "He sees the real me," she burst out. "The one I was meant to be. Strong, independent, worthy of my place, not—" She faltered, unable to say. "A notary's assistant in some backwater office." Nicholas slowly removed his glasses, wiped them with the edge of his shirt. His uncovered eyes were full of sadness and understanding. He slid a delicate gray silk scarf across the desk, the one she had dropped that morning. "I hope you're right, Anna," he said very softly. "I truly do. Just don't lose yourself. For heaven's sake, don't lose what you found here." He placed the scarf in front of her. "You dropped this." Anna picked it up. The silk slid between her fingers, cold and foreign. Nicholas's words burned like embers. Don't lose yourself. Who was she now? The girl from the office? Or Anna Winterborn, the one Alex Carter admired? She didn't know, but the glitter of Alex's world called to her more power. The Golden Cage of Greenwich. The mansion in Greenwich wasn't a home, but a modern art museum where living was permitted. Glass walls, cold marble, abstract sculptures whose meaning eluded Anna. The air smelled of money and sterility. Everything was flawless, predictable, devoid of random scents or sounds, just like her childhood penthouse, only bigger, more expensive, and colder. Marriage to Alex Carter had seemed like a fairy tale return. The wedding was the event of the season. Anna saw familiar faces from her past again, now watching her triumphant comeback with a mix of curiosity and envy. Alex was attentive, generous, charming. He admired her like a jewel set into his perfect life. For the first few months, she basked in that attention, in the glitter, in the illusion of restored justice. She had earned this. After her fall, she had risen higher than before. But soon, the glass walls began to close in. Alex was busy, very busy. Deals, negotiations, clubs, trips. His presence in the house was measured in hours between meetings. When he was home, conversations revolved around money, status, new acquisitions, a yacht, a collection, a plot of land in the Alps. His interest in her inner world, in her thoughts about working for Nicholas, about books, about anything outside his universe, had faded the moment she became his wife. She was part of the decor, beautiful but static. One evening, while Alex was at a dinner with investors, Anna wandered through the endless rooms. Her footsteps echoed hollowly in the emptiness. She stopped by a massive window overlooking the garden, artfully lit by hidden lamps. It was perfect, too perfect. She remembered Emma's cramped kitchen, the smell of paint and fried potatoes, their laughter over cheap wine. She remembered Nicholas's focused face as he pored over a complicated contract, his quiet "thank you, Anna," which had meant more than all of Alex's compliments. She wanted to call Emma, but what would she say? "I'm bored in my palace?" It sounded tacky and ungrateful. She picked up the phone, dialed Emma's number, then put it down before it could ring, shame mingled with longing for something real. Isabel, an earthquake in the soul. The birth of Isabel was an earthquake that upheaved every layer of her existence. It was nothing like her theatrical love for Alex or her cold attachment to her parents. This was a force of nature, raw, demanding, sleep-depriving, filled with cries, the scent of baby powder and milk, endless diapers, and the sheer terror for this fragile little bundle of life. Alex was enchanted by his daughter like a new toy. He ordered the most expensive strollers, toys, hired the best nanny, but his admiration was superficial, like a glossy magazine photo. The real work, the sleepless nights, the colic, the first vaccinations, the inexplicable tears, fell on Anna. And in this work, in this absolute animal closeness, a miracle happened. Anna forgot about glass walls, about the emptiness of dinner parties. Her whole world narrowed to the crib, to the warm little body pressed against her chest, to the trusting eyes that looked only at her. One night, while feeding Isabel, Anna caught herself thinking. She was happy, not in the way she had been under the glow of Alex's attention, but deeply, to the point of trembling knees, to tears. This happiness wasn't bought, it was earned through labor, sleeplessness, giving all of herself without reserve. She kissed the soft fuzz on her daughter's head and suddenly understood her grandmother Sophia's words, which had once seemed abstract. To truly love is to give, without counting, without expecting reward. She gave Isabel everything, and it filled her with a strength she had never known before. Emma came to visit when Isabel was 3 months old. She burst into the sterile living room in an absurd bridesmaid dress, purple velvet with pink ruffles, that Anna had once bought for her and immediately reached for the baby. "Let me have your little princess, my queen." She took Isabel in her arms with unexpected tenderness, contradicting her outrageous appearance. Wow, A carbon copy of Mommy, only prettier, she winked at Anna. Anna, with dark circles under her eyes, in a stretched-out t-shirt, her luxurious silks had proven impractical for motherhood, laughed. "Well, Princess," Emma said, rocking Isabel, "royal blood doesn't help with spit-up or those stupid colics, huh?" Anna watched as Emma, that pink-haired rebel, clumsily but sincerely soothed her daughter. Isabel calmed in her arms. "No," Anna replied softly, relief in her voice, "it doesn't, and thank God." That laughter, that understanding exchanged in a glance between them was a breath of fresh air. It was real. Isabel had tied her to life more firmly than any walls ever could. Cracks in the crystal. With the birth of Isabel, Anna ceased to be Alex's ornament in his eyes. She was now, above all, the mother of his daughter. His attention, already superficial, shifted to new projects, new passions. His visits home grew shorter, his explanations more vague. The dinner parties where Anna was expected to shine became torture. She sat among brilliant, hollow people, smiled, kept up conversations about the latest art trends or stock prices, while all she could think about was whether Isabel had woken up, whether she was crying. Her world was here, in the nursery, with the scent of her baby, not in the dining room, with crystal glasses and fake smiles. She tried talking to Alex about her longing for something real, her desire not to work. He would never allow his wife to lower herself to a job, but to do something meaningful. Charity? A gallery? His responses were polite but distant. "Darling, you have everything," he would say, kissing her forehead like a child. "Focus on Isabel, on yourself, on making our home perfect. Your role is to be beautiful and serene. Don't clutter your mind with nonsense." His father's phrase echoed in her memory, "Don't clutter your mind." Alex didn't see her. He saw a function, a wife, the mother of his child, a part of his image. Loneliness in a crowd became her companion. She caught herself envying the nanny who fussed over Isabel and could spend hours telling her fairy tales. The nanny had a bond with her daughter, while she, the mother, was often left with only formal duties and the crushing sense that she was failing at her role as Alex Carter's perfect wife. The crystal sphere had cracked, and through that crack, the outline of another life grew clearer, noisy, messy, imperfect, but real. A pitiful spectacle. The betrayal didn't come as a knife in the back. It was a vulgar, absurd farce. Anna came home early. The hall was quiet. The maid was off. The nanny had taken Isabel to the park. Anna was about to go up to the nursery when she heard laughter. A woman's. Strangely familiar, strangely out of place. It was coming from Alex's study. She approached the half-open door. The scene before her was so cliché, it didn't spark rage, just disgust. Alex, in a silk robe, fumbled with the belt. Estelle, the young, curly-haired housekeeper, giggled, clutching her crumpled uniform to her chest. On the desk stood half-empty champagne glasses. Not passion, not love, cheap flirtation, vulgarity. "Anna," Alex spotted her in the doorway, his face twisted in panic. This isn't what you think. We were just discussing the cleaning schedule." Estelle spilled some wine. Estelle flushed crimson, trying to cover herself with the uniform. "Yes, Mrs. Carter, just an accident." Anna stood motionless. Inside there was no anger, no pain, just icy cold and overwhelming pity for him, for this handsome, hollow man, so trapped in his gilded cage that he sought thrills in the arms of a housekeeper, for Estelle, just as foolish and lost, for herself, who had once fallen for this glittering illusion. She looked at Alex the way Linda from the bakery had once looked at her, the bewildered, penniless princess. with the same calm, unjudging, yet unsympathetic understanding of human weakness and folly. "This means nothing to me either, Alex," she said quietly, firmly, cutting off his babbling. Her voice didn't waver. "Absolutely nothing." She turned and walked across the marble floor. Her footsteps echoed in the empty hall. Only one thought: Isabel. She went up to the nursery. Sunlight streamed through the window. Toys lay scattered on the rug. Her daughter's world. The only thing that mattered. She moved methodically, automatically, like filling out paperwork for Martha back in the day. She packed Isabel's essentials, the documents, her own passports, put them in a practical travel bag, a gift from Alex. Ironic. Alex burst into the nursery, breathless, still in his robe. "Anna, listen, it was a mistake. Stupidity. I love you. I love Isabel." She didn't even turn, zipped the bag shut. "We're leaving, Alex. Don't interfere with my packing." "Where? Are you insane? You have nothing." His voice held panic and contempt. He saw her again, the helpless girl from the streets. Anna finally looked at him, calm, cold. "I have Isabel, and that's enough. The lawyers will contact you." She took the stuffed bear from her daughter's crib, held it tightly, then picked up the bag. "Goodbye, Alex." She walked past him, ignoring his face twisted with rage and fear, past Estelle, still giggling in the study doorway. She left the mansion. The Crystal Palace was behind her now. The sun shone bright. In the park, she found the nanny, took the stroller with a sleeping Isabel, and called a cab. JFK, first flight to Paris. She wasn't going back to the past. She was moving toward the future, with Isabel, toward life. Paris streets. Starting from scratch. Again. Paris greeted them with autumn rain. A small rented apartment in Montmartre, right under the roof, was filled with light, the creaking of wooden floors, and chaos. Isabel's toys quickly took over every corner. Anna found work as a freelance translator. Dry legal texts, equipment manuals. The job was monotonous and paid modestly, but it offered a flexible schedule and the chance to be with Isabel. There were no maids here, no nannies available at a moment's notice. Anna learned to do everything herself, washing clothes in a tiny machine, ironing diapers with a handle that kept falling off, cooking simple soups on a miniature stove. Every cent was accounted for. She discovered cheap markets where she bought fresh vegetables and learned to bake rolls. The first ones turned out like rocks, but Isabel enthusiastically smeared them with jam. Pride had completely dissolved. What remained was exhaustion, sometimes despair, but also a strange sense of freedom. Here she was on her own, just her and Isabel, and it was hard, but it was right. Madame Lefebvre and the Philosophy of the Leaking Faucet. The downstairs neighbor, Madame Lefebvre, was the living embodiment of the word grump. Around 70 years old, thin as a twig, with a sharp gaze and an ever-present knitting hook in her hand, she grumbled about everything. The noise of Isabel's little footsteps in the morning, the smell of Anya's culinary experiments, the way Anya hung laundry on the tiny balcony. One day, the kitchen faucet burst. Water gushed out, flooding the floor. Anya panicked, rushing to plug it with rags that instantly soaked through. Then came a knock at the door, sharp, insistent. Anya opened it, wet and flustered. "Tch," Madame Lefebvre scoffed, holding a wrench and surveying the flood. "Give it here, child, you'll drown the whole building. What are those useless landlords even doing?" She deftly squeezed into the tiny kitchen, nudged Anya aside, and muttered under her breath, "Young people. Can't do a thing, just waste money." With a few quick motions, she shut off the water, unscrewed the faucet, and pulled out an old, worn-out washer. "See this?" She showed Anya the black rubber ring. "Not everything can be bought with money. Skill, that's what matters, and patience, and the right tool." She thrust a new washer into Anya's hand. Where she'd gotten it so quickly was a mystery. "Put it in, carefully. And for heaven's sake, buy yourself a wrench." Anya, drenched and embarrassed, thanked her. Madame Lefebvre waved her off. But the next day, Anya brought her fresh croissants. The old woman huffed but took them. Then, suddenly, she asked, "Your little one, what's her name?" "Isabelle." Pretty name." Madame Lefebvre broke off a piece of the croissant. "Hard doing it alone?" "Yes," Anya admitted honestly. "But we manage." "Everyone manages," Madame Lefebvre grumbled, but something like approval flickered in her eyes. "As long as you've got your health, the rest you'll learn." She reminded Anya of Grandma Sophia, the same practical wisdom hidden behind thorns of grumbling. It was a comfort, a connection, croissants of imperfection, and the happiness of the unideal. A Saturday morning. A ray of sunlight broke through the curtain of the tiny kitchen in Montmartre. On the table, flour, butter, eggs, yeast, and Isabelle. The 3-year-old girl, her little forehead furrowed in concentration, was kneading dough with her small hands, covered in flour up to her elbows. Anna, in an apron imprinted with tiny handprints, supervised the process. "Okay, sunshine, now we roll it out." "No, not that thin. Oops." The dough tore. Isabelle burst into laughter. "Mama broke it!" she declared triumphantly. "Mama didn't break it. We're just learning." Anna smiled, gathering the lump of dough. "The important thing is to try and to have fun, like this." She showed her how to shape the dough into a snail. Isabelle eagerly repeated it, producing something vaguely resembling a seashell, but looking more like a comical slug. The pastries that came out of the oven were uneven, some too big, others slightly burnt on one side, some still pale, but the smell was divine. Warm, yeasty, and utterly homey. "Yum!" Isabelle enthusiastically bit into her slug, leaving sugar crumbs on her nose. "Mama, tasty!" Anna took a bite of her own snail. The dough was slightly underbaked in places, the sugar still grainy, completely imperfect, and infinitely delicious. She looked at her daughter, her shining eyes, the flour in her hair, the lopsided, funny little pastries. This wasn't a gourmet feast. This was a celebration of life. Simple, sticky, imperfect, and absolutely real. She remembered the exquisite pastries from the penthouse, the ones she used to eat alone. This was 1,000 times better. This was happiness. The science of the unideal. Cell 114. A letter from eternity. The key was waiting. That very key, small, old-fashioned, straight out of a fairy tale. It lay in the pocket of Anna's coat as she stood in front of the imposing bank building on Rue La Verlière. Her heart pounded wildly. Why was she here? What awaited her behind the door of safe deposit box 114? Her grandmother's final gift? A twist of fate? A test? The bank's lawyer, a prim gentleman with impeccable manners, led her into a quiet, cool room lined with safes. The scrape of the lock echoed loudly in the silence. Anna pulled open the heavy door. Inside lay a thick envelope made of sturdy paper, and one more thing, a small wooden box, dark and polished. She picked up the envelope. On it, a familiar handwriting. "To my dear Anushka, when you read this, know that I am with you." Her hands trembled. She broke the seal. Inside were several legal documents, powers of attorney, certificates of ownership, and a letter. Pages filled with the same slightly shaky yet still elegant script. My beloved girl, if you are holding this letter, it means you have walked through fire. I knew your path would be difficult. I saw how your parents, in their blind love and fear, built glass walls around you, molded you into a fragile porcelain doll for the display case of their own ambitions. I could not openly argue. Their world was too fragile for the truth. But I could prepare a bridge for you, back to your true self. My treasures, Anna, are not just money. You will find all the necessary documents. They are yours now, down to the last centime. My true treasures are my faith in you, my pride in you. I knew of your fall into the abyss. I know about your work for that young notary. He has kind, intelligent eyes behind his glasses. I checked. I know about your marriage and your courageous escape. I know about my wonderful great-granddaughter, Isabel, the light of your eyes. Every bit of news about you that reached me through trusted people was a drop of living water for my old soul. I am proud of you, Anushka, not because you survived. Even rats survive. I am proud because you grew. You learned to stand on your own feet, to feel another's pain as your own, to cook pasta, to love unconditionally, just as you love my Isabel. You learned to see people not their status, but their souls. That is the most precious knowledge of all. Money is just a key, my darling, my heart, a key to freedom of choice, not to luxury, not to a return to a gilded cage, but to freedom. Choose wisely, choose with your heart, choose life, real life, with its tears, laughter, lopsided pastries, and true friends. Love my Isabel as I loved you, not blindly, but wisely, believing in her strength, in her right to make mistakes and to search. I am always with you. In the whisper of the wind, in the scent of fresh bread, in Isabel's laughter, I love you endlessly. Your grandmother, Sophia. Tears streamed silently down Anna's cheeks, dripping onto the yellowed paper. She wasn't crying from grief. She was crying from love, from that boundless, wise, unconditional love that had reached her across the years, even beyond death. She pressed the letter to her chest, breathing in the faint scent of lavender that had always lingered around her grandmother. I am proud of you. Those words sank deep into her soul, like seeds into fertile soil, finally ready to receive them. She opened the small box. Inside, nestled on velvet, lay a simple gold ring, Grandmother Sophia's wedding band. No diamonds, just warmth and memory. Anna slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Freedom of choice, a return to people. Money changed everything and nothing. It didn't bring Anna back to a world of glitter. It gave her wings, wings of choice. The first thing she did was secure Isabel's future, safely, wisely, just as her grandmother had instructed. Then she bought that small apartment in Montmartre. Now it was their home, not just a temporary refuge. She found the best doctors for Madame Lefebvre, whose old bones ached more and more. She opened a foundation to help women in situations like the one she had once been in. Money became a tool, not a goal. A tool to do good, to build a life. But the most important decision came to her as she sat with Isabel in the Luxembourg Gardens, on the same bench where she had read her grandmother's letter. She watched her daughter shaping sand castles and suddenly understood with absolute clarity. Her place wasn't only here. It was with the people who had become her family before the money. With Emma, with Nicholas, her duty, her joy, was to be with them. "Isabel," she said softly, taking her daughter's sandy hand, "we're going to visit someone. Aunt Emma. Remember the pictures I showed you of the aunt with pink hair?" "Pink aunt!" Isabel exclaimed happily. "Yes, sweetheart, the pink aunt. And maybe a nice bespectacled uncle, too." Board number 7. The Battle for Pink Hair. Returning to New York was different this time. Anna wasn't looking for glamour. She was looking for Emma. And she found her, in the oncology ward, pale, gaunt, with only a shadow of her former vibrant pink hair peeking out from under a simple cotton scarf. But her eyes, years of illness hadn't killed the spark in them. She gave a weak smirk when she saw Anna in the doorway. "Well, if it isn't the princess of the solar system." Her voice was hoarse but unmistakable. "Don't waste your space budgets on a wreck like me. Take your little one and get out of here. It's sad and it smells like medicine." Isabel, frightened by the sight of tubes and machines, clung to her mother's leg. Anna walked to the bed, ignoring her words. She sat on the edge, carefully taking Emma's hand. It was light, fragile, just like Martha's had been years ago. "Shut up, Em," Anna said softly, but with the same firmness she'd once used with Alex. "You're my first real friend, my sister, and I won't let you give up. You're going to draw your dragons, argue with me about wine, we'll try the expensive stuff now if you want, and teach Isabel all kinds of terrible words. Deal?" Emma looked at her, her eyes filled with tears. She squeezed Anna's hand with what little strength she had left. "Deal, princess," she whispered. "But only if you find me a wig. Pink, the brightest one there is. This scarf is total crap." Anna didn't just buy a wig. She bought a chance for the best doctors in the world, for experimental treatments, for round-the-clock care. She wasn't buying health. She was buying time and hope. And she stayed by Emma's side, every day. She read Emma's favorite comics aloud, doing all the voices, brought her sketchbooks to draw in bed. Even if the lines were shaky, the dragon still came to life. And simply sat holding her hand when there was no strength left for anything else. Just like Emma had sat with her in that Brooklyn kitchen when her world had fallen apart. It was a circle of friendship, of loyalty, of love. The battle was long and brutal, but Emma, with her indomitable spirit, began to win. Slowly, unsteadily, but surely. The pink wig became a symbol of that victory. Renault and Associates, a look through the years. Nicolas Renault's office was no longer cramped in 2 small rooms. A respectable sign reading "Renault and Associates" adorned the doors of a spacious office in the business district. Anna walked in almost by chance, on business for the foundation that collaborated with law firms. The secretary, a young woman, gasped when she saw her name on the visitor list. Miss Winterborn? Please, wait just a moment." The office door swung open. Out he came. Nicolas. More confident, dressed in an excellent, though not flashy suit. His hair now streaked with gray, but his eyes behind the glasses were the same. Intelligent, kind, wide with surprise and something else, a hidden sorrow that hadn't been there before. "Anna?" His voice trembled. He stood as if afraid she might vanish. "Is it really you?" They talked for hours, not in the office, but in a quiet little cafe nearby, about work, the city, how they had grown, about clients who had come and gone. Nicolas told her how he had bought the old office from his former boss, how he had expanded, how he had struggled through crises. He showed her a photo on his phone, their old, cluttered desk. Remember that eccentric guy with the parrot who wanted to leave his stamp collection to it? Nicholas asked, smiling. Of course, Anna laughed. It kept pecking your hand when you tried to explain that a parrot couldn't be an heir, and then it flew over to Mr. Peterson's client and nearly pecked his will, leaving everything to his cat. They laughed, reminiscing. Anna no longer saw him as the nerdy guy or the notary from the back streets, but as a strong, intelligent, determined man who had built himself up, nail by nail, client by client. He no longer saw her as the wealthy heiress or a victim of circumstances, but as Anna, the same woman who had learned to live, to love, to fight, and to forgive, the one whose strength now lay not in outward glamour, but in an inner light. Isabel immediately took a liking to the kind-eyed man with funny pictures on his phone. Garden, petals, and a quiet vow. The wedding was quiet, not in a cathedral nor in a lavish mansion. In the garden of Anna's house in the suburbs of Paris, small, cozy, bathed in summer sunlight. Only the closest were present. Emma, still pale but radiant in an incredibly vibrant purple-pink outfit and her bold pink wig. She was the maid of honor. Madame Lefebvre, who gifted a card with a painted tulip and the inscription, "Don't spill the soup of life, newlyweds." A few old, loyal friends from Paris and New York. Isabel, serious and dressed up like a little fairy, diligently scattered rose petals from the bushes planted in memory of Grandma Sophie in front of her mother and Uncle Nicholas. Nicholas, looking into Anna's eyes, recited his vows. Not loud, pompous ones, but simple, honest words, like those he'd spoken years ago in a paper-cluttered office. Thank you, Anna. You saved the day. Only now they sounded like, thank you for finding me. Thank you for coming home. I'll be by your side, in joy and in sorrow, in crooked pastries and perfect contracts. Always. Anna took his hand. She felt the roughness of his palm, the hand of a working man, someone who had built his life from the ground up. She saw Emma wiping away a tear before making a silly face at Isabel. She saw her daughter's happy expression. She squeezed Nicholas's hand, now bearing Grandma Sophie's simple gold ring alongside his wedding band. She remembered her grandmother's words, freedom of choice. She had chosen. Not a glass aquarium, not a gilded cage. She had chosen this garden, this laughter, these people, this life. Real, complicated, sometimes hard, but infinitely full of meaning, the kind you can't buy, only live. Her greatest inheritance wasn't in banks. It was here, in the ability to love, to be a friend, to forgive, to be grateful, and finally, simply to live. That was the most important lesson. Anna's lesson. Lessons for Isabel. Years later, evening, the same garden. Now 2 children are running around, Isabel and her younger brother, Luca. Nicola is fixing the bench that Luca managed to break while trying to fly. Anna sits next to Emma, whose hair is once again her own, stylishly dyed silver pink. She's sketching the children. "Mom!" Isabel calls out as she runs over, now almost a teenager, her eyes filled with a mother's wisdom and a child's curiosity. "You promised to tell me a story. The story about the key?" Anna smiles. She takes her daughter's hand, glances at Grandma Sophia's ring on her finger, then at Nicola, at Emma, at the laughing children. "This isn't just a story about a key, sweetheart. It's a story about how the greatest treasure isn't what's kept in a bank." She looks around the garden, the house, her loved ones, but what lives here, in the heart, and is built every day with love, hard work, loyalty, and the ability to see people, real people, even if their hands are red from labor, their hair is pink, or their croissants are lopsided. Remember that, my girl. That's the most important lesson. Isabel nods seriously, her gaze drifting over the faces of her family. She doesn't fully understand yet, but she'll remember. Just as Anna remembered the lessons from Linda, Marta, Emma, Madame Lefebvre, Nicola, Grandma Sophia. Life's lessons passed down not with grand words, but with endless love. Lessons that stay forever.